Greetings and salutations, citizens. This is Wolfphototech, and here we are with another delightful video. This is another really early book within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. This is called the Monster Manual, which is not to be confused with the Monster Manual, or if you can see up here, the Monstrous Manual for Dungeons & Dragons Advanced, or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. This is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition this time. This time I'm going to open this up and notice that I have an easel hand hold. So, one of those fun techniques you can develop as a hand model. Anyways, you have a little piece of artwork right here of the cover and the back. And then you have the table of contents. And then right here, you have the introduction that explains the general gist of this book. A little section explains how to use the book, what is a monster, and then they have a nice little section here, where do monsters dwell? And they list out dungeons, Underdark, the wilderness, towns and cities, underwater, and planes of existence. Now, it's really important to note that they also list out various possibilities in here of where you can find such monsters in those settings. In which case, there's actually some really nice possibilities there. And then they have what monsters to use, statistics by sizes, types, alignment. By the way, really important note about alignment. It states that even if it lists an alignment in the book, a monster can be any alignment. What is listed in the book is the typical, most common alignment in which the monster tends towards due to culture, environment, etc., etc., etc. So, if something is listed as chaotic evil, it doesn't mean that that's always going to be chaotic evil. It just means that the majority of the time, or a substantially large portion of the time, when you run into that type of monster, it's going to be most likely in that chaotic, evil-ish territory. So there you go. You got information on armor class, hit points. There's a hit point chart by size here, or a hit dice chart, and the typical average for a die. Then you have movement types, ability score section, saving throw section, proficiency bonus by challenge rating. So if you are constructing a monster and want to use the basic rules from vanilla 5th edition to construct a monster, there is information in this book that allows you to understand the components of everything, and then combine that with the Dungeon Master's guide. You have the two sets of components in which the two sets of charts that you can use to work out exactly where you want your monster in power level and durability. They got different section on senses like blind sight, dark vision, tremor sense, and true sight. Languages, telepathy information, challenges, experience point chart here by challenge. So you have experience points by challenge rating. So a challenge rating of 0 is either 0 XP to 10 XP, and a challenge rating up to 30 is around 155,000 experience. And there's a whole range between those 2 points. Then you have a section on special traits, innate spellcasting, psionics, actions, equipment, legendary creature information on legendary actions, legendary creatures layers, layer actions, regional effects, and so forth. And then we get into the actual monsters. Now, it's important to remember, a lot of Dungeon Masters tend to forget layer actions and regional effects. A lot of times when They complain that they oopsied, the monster got TPK'd super quickly. Oftentimes they forgot to use their lair actions or regional effects. You got Aarakocra, Aboleth, and all generally variety of monsters. There is a fair amount of information for many types of monsters in this book. However, it is actually fairly basic overall. If I were to say grab down the Monstrous Manual for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and give you a quick overshoot, this is the information on the Aarakocra for the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Monstrous Manual. And there's the information for the Aboleth. And pretty much every monster in the Monstrous Manual has a huge block section of information on it. Or if has a group of various family of monsters that are very similar to each other, they'll have a section right here and they'll describe the differences between them and their culture and how they relate to each other. The 5th edition Monstrous Manual is mostly focused around stat blocks with just little bits of flavor history about the monsters to get you the general gist. And the big thing is probably like the artwork. They put a lot more effort into putting in nicer artwork in the Monstrous Manual, in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition's Monster Manual, where in the original Monster Manual, which I happen to have here, the artwork is typically something in that territory, and then there's typically little sections about this big of information for said monster. This book actually crams a lot of critters into a small space. You got literally like 3 or 4 pages of nothing but dinosaurs, but very little artwork of dinosaurs, which makes me sad that there was not enough artwork for dinosaurs in the original Advanced Dungeons & Dragons manual. But anyways, that's the nice thing about the 5th edition one. There is a lot of good artwork in here. They just kind of focus more on the artwork and the stat blocks, and occasionally you will get a monster that has a great deal of history, like the Beholder, where they give it several pages on it and some variants. But that's about it. Generally, people complain about the CR being off for monsters. It is important to note that the CR system for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is based off of the first wave of books for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, the logic, the design theory going into those books, as well as vanilla Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, which does not include any variant rules. Some variant rules that a lot of groups play with for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, they have multi-classing. Multi-classing is a variant rule within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Feats are a variant rule within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So when you start combining in feats and multi-classing and other stuff like that, and some homebrew, you can very easily tilt everything as far as CR is concerned, more on the player's side. As you can see yet again, there's a lot of nice artwork in this book. I'm not going to literally page through the whole thing. But anyways, you got a nice variety of demons. You got a nice variety of devils. You got some dinosaurs. Not nearly as many dinosaurs as the advanced you have like 6 dinosaurs, where this one has like 24 dinosaurs in it. Had to leave the bookmark right where the bugbear is. But anyways, there's very few dinosaurs in this book. There needs to be more dinosaurs, Wizards of the Coast. Come on. I want more dinos. I'm quite sure one of my players / dungeon masters also wants more dinosaurs. You got a nice array of basic dragons. the chromatics, the metallics, stuff like that. The common chromatics and metallic dragons. There are some chromatic and metallic dragons that are left out, like yellow dragons. Where in the heck is it in here? But anyway, Furbolg. That's what a Furbolg looks like in older editions. But anyways, there is actually, in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, so many more metallics and chromatics. You got also gem dragons in here as well. You got a brown dragon, you got a cloud dragon, deep dragon, mercury dragon, mist dragon, shadow dragon, steel dragon, yellow dragon, which is another type of chromatic, and so forth. I had to drag those out. But anyways, you have a decent variety of dragons in this book, but not nearly the variety in other editions. However, they do, in this book, definitely focus more on the dragon's life cycle. A little more depth in their stat blocks, where in the older books, it's basically just a modification or just a strip of information with changes. So there you go. You got Formians, you got Flumps, you got all kinds of basic stuff. You got Gobos. My players are up against a bunch of goblins right now. You got Hippogriffs and Kuatoa and all kinds of fun stuff. You have a decent starter variety for monsters in this monster manual, but it's not incredibly amazing. Then I'm going to skip all the way back, shoot past the Yugolos, and you get into the section of the Appendix A section, Miscellaneous Creatures. Like, by the way, at the very end, there's also a bunch of zombies. But there's a Miscellaneous Creatures like apes, awakened trees, awakened shrubs, axe beaks, black bears, baboons, blood hawks, brown bears, camel, crab, giant apes, and so forth. A lot of these stuff back here in this very back of the book is great for wild shape. Not all of it. You have to be careful. You have to pay attention to the fact that some things in here will have monstrosity or will have some other aspect tied to them that disqualifies them from being a wild shape critter. Say like a phase spider cannot be wild shaped into because it is a large monstrosity. And then you also have white winter wolves, which are also large monstrosities as well as a warg, which is also a large monstrosity. So you have to be careful with some players trying to get that in. And then you got some miscellaneous people, commoners, cultists, cult fanatics, berserkers, bandit captains, druids, gladiators, guards, knights, mages, nobles, priests, scouts, spy, thug, tribal warrior, veteran. And then you got an index in the very back of the book that quickly goes over where all the monsters can be found in the book by alphabet, because at various points in the book where you get to like nagas or dragons, they go out of order, or demons or devils. It's no longer alphabetical order in the book, but right back here in the index, it's always alphabetical. And it just has a little strip of art, and it goes through each letter for monsters. And interestingly enough, zombies are like its own little thing in the back end. So there you go. Right now, This book is probably going... I have to remind people that this book is going to get an update in 2024 or a new edition. Wizards of the Coast claims it's going to be update. However, it could very much be literally a brand new book that's entirely different or entirely worked over. So there you go. Right now, this book is like 3.5 stars. It is still fairly high value. It is it's a 3 to 4 range right in there. You definitely want to consider picking up this book because this has a lot of the most common monsters you're going to run into all the time and want to use. However, due to the power creep in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, a lot of these monsters in this book are on the weaker side. So once your players start getting past, say, level 6 or 7, a lot of the monsters are going to be underswinging on them, and you're probably going to have to give them a little more support if players are using the newer character options. Otherwise, you're going to run into some serious issues. This is one of the few times in which there's not any artwork on the page. It's just a list of different information on monsters. And then you have the demons stat blocks all in a line. So there you go. So this is a perfectly usable book. There's nothing seriously wrong with it outside of the fact that the player options are starting to outpace the monsters in it. And the second problem is there's an update to this book coming in 2024. That's about it. I do highly recommend this book still, as this is going to be your workhorse for the vast majority of monsters in the game. And it does contain some interesting lore. There are other books that have a more specialized array of monsters or have a particular theme going with them. But other than that, this is a pretty darn good book overall. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. And I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time.